it's 2024. To some, it's just another year. To automotive enthusiasts, it's the year of the R34 GTR. This is because the R34 generation of the GTR turns 25 this year, and people can start legally importing them into the United States on a federal level. This hasn't been done since Motor X, which is a big deal for those who know what Motor X is. But last year, the non-GTR models also turned 25 and started popping up as well. And with prices for each iteration of the car being so high, you gotta ask yourself, does spending over $100,000 for a 300 horsepower, 2-decade-old Nissan really make sense? If you say no, you could get called a hater or a broke boy.
Like, if you're a broke boy, just say so.
But let's deep dive into this discussion and see if I can't quantify things a little bit. Hey all, I'm Tom, the Racing Joker, and welcome to another episode of Car Topics Explained. Alrighty, let's get started. On the 21st of February 2024, the auction for a 2002 R34 GTR M-Spec, a car that typically sells for insane amounts like upwards of $300,000 to over $500,000, failed to even meet its reserve. So how high did the bidding go? Well, only $181,000. So I looked at the logs from the bidding war that was going on and saw that Houston Crosta was in there. His highest bid was $180,000. And in case you didn't know who this guy is, he's the guy who owns Royalty Exotic Cars, a place that's all about renting a diverse array of exotic six-figure vehicles. Whether it's supercars, sports cars, luxury things, you get the idea. The type of person who's not a stranger to purchasing cars that are worth more than most people's houses. Now, I don't know how bidding works on Bring a Trailer, but I guess no one wants to risk overpaying right away. But I just think it's interesting that a car that typically goes over at least $300,000 reached only $181 and didn't meet its reserve. And so, I got thinking, is that just because people ran out of time to bid on it to hit that reserve? Or is it because people just don't think it's worth that much anymore? Well, let's talk about another example. In September, a couple of other cars failed to sell on Bring a Trailer as well. The highest bid on a 1998 R34 25 GTT, or GT, I'm not sure, was $34,750 and it didn't meet its reserve. Pretty crazy what people are asking for GTTs now. It's like asking for $50,000 for an E46 330 Ci. And now in the same month, a silver R34 GTR in Canada didn't meet its reserve either, but the bidding did reach $81,420. Pretty wild when a decade ago, these cars were going for half that. And back in 2014 when I was in high school, I found an M-Spec in Australia selling for 90,000 Australian dollars. But is this all a symptom of a larger problem that no one wants to pay that much for one of these cars anymore? Or is Bring a Trailer just a hard place to sell them at true market value? I don't know. I quite frankly can't decide what to think anymore, whether these cars are worth these crazy amounts of money or not. Kind of back and forth. One argument I hear a lot is that the most basic examples of the R34 GTR are simply going for MSRP if you account for inflation. Let me explain. Craig Lieberman once told me that he bought his black R34 GTR fully federally legal from Motor X for $78,000 in I think it was either 2000 or 2001. I can't remember. In 2024 money, that is $142,000. So when you spend a little over $100,000 for one of these cars, 120, 130, 140, 150, the argument is you're just paying MSRP. My biggest concern with it is this. I make just under $100,000 a year, which I'd like to think is pretty good. And if these cars were selling for what I would think and want them to be worth, about $50,000 for basic examples like a Bayside Blue V-Spec 2 or whatever, I'd eat ramen for a year and get one. But because they go for new Lamborghini money, there becomes a problem. I'm all about the driving experience. I've driven $200,000 supercars. I'm worried that if I meet my JDM hero, I'll be disappointed because of the price tag that comes with it. I'm worried I'll get in it and think, this is 100 grand? I'll struggle to see the value. That's what I'm kind of really worried about. They say don't meet your heroes, and in the case of the R34 GTR, the price tag kind of embodies that saying. Because I'll hop into it and think, this doesn't feel like $100,000. It feels like 40 grand. But you know, whatever. There is enough rich people out there that are perfectly fine with spending this much money on these cars. And if enough rich people agree what something is worth, it doesn't matter what the poor people think and what they think the true value is. But maybe none of that matters. Maybe none of that is actually helping us draw a good conclusion. So we're going to do something a little bit more complicated here. The final experiment to see where the value might be. See if we can quantify it. Let's take an R34 GTT and convert it, theoretically, to a fully built GTR spec. And as we do it, we'll see where, the money's going and see what the grand total is as time goes on. And if it gets too crazy, well, we'll just have to give up. So this means GTR drivetrain, RB26 powertrain, GTR interior, standalone ECU, etc., etc. We're going to make it seem like you've not only gotten a GTR, but you've also built it. So let's take the M-Spec NER base spec as the example foundation, and let's say we're building a replica of, since it's my favorite and popular culture, the Street Racing Syndicate Lightning Yellow M-Spec NER. A fictional Motorex car, by the way. Just please know, Motorex never imported an M-Spec NER. Not that you need to, because they're on the show or display exemption. Moving on. To make things a little easier, our car is going to come stock in EV1 Lightning Yellow. So we're going to spend at least $50,000 for the RB25 powered GTT. Or maybe you can find an HR34 with an RB20. Might save you some money, might not. And since we're doing this with no expense spared, we're going to do a proper quarter panel conversion rather than just slapping on a couple fiberglass over fenders. The only shop in the United States that has done this, to my knowledge, is Monster Performance in Florida. And it'll be about $16,000. Let's say the COS body kit is about $6 grand as well, because quite frankly, the prices fluctuate for some reason. I spoke with Original Auto over in California, and they said that an 05U RB26 with an HKS 2.8 liter stroker kit would total to be about $27,499. Just in case you're curious where we're currently sitting with the total cost, $99,499 has been spent thus far, not including the labor of the installation of the engine or anything like that. Now let's make it cool. Let's take an HPS custom single turbo kit, which starts at I think $3,600, and now your car sounds like Brian's from Too Fast, Too Furious, and that's pretty freaking cool. Let's say your Haltech 2500 Elite ECU is $2 grand. Also, normally I'd go for authenticity and get a genuine R34 GTR all-wheel drive 6-speed get-drag transmission, but they cost as much as a sequential these days. So let's just get an OS Geekin OS88, which is about 15 grand. Now we're sitting at $120,099. Okay, not looking good. So now you can see we're in a bind. We're already getting close to market value of just R34 GTRs. It's pretty bad because this doesn't include tuning, the wiring, the leather interior, the fabrication you're gonna have to do, the labor for a lot of stuff. The R32 and R33 GTR drivetrain parts. It gets to a point where, I don't know, it might be cheaper in the long run to build a basic GTR and maybe just put an RB30 in it or something, or just keep the RB26. I don't know. That's more economical because you already have the RB26, the quarter panels, the transmission, and a whole host of other stuff. And your VIN's going to also prove to people that you authentically have a GTR, which is what we're trying to replicate anyways. So it might not be economically worth it anymore. But so what conclusion do we need to draw here? Does that mean the basic spec cars selling for a little over 100 grand are valued properly? Or should they be closer to $80,000 to $90,000 since the theoretical GTT is fully built? Remember, we're talking about a fully built car. Or does this simply mean the standard cars are valued properly, but the so-called more rare examples, like the V-Spec 2s, which aren't really that special in my opinion. They don't have special engine blocks. They just have a different interior and, you know, a carbon fiber hood, which you can get from any aftermarket company. It's just going to have really good fitment, I guess. Or the NER specs. Maybe those are overpriced too. Maybe they're not. Those can be pretty special examples in most cases. But bear in mind, there was a time when a Z-Tune was worth $500,000. Now standard cars go for what used to be Z-Tune money. But hey, I'll tell you what cars definitely aren't worth jack now. These state-titled cars that were smuggled into the country because people couldn't wait for them to turn 25. Check out this video if you want to see just how many beautiful cars have been blacklisted and can never be driven on US roads ever again.